to order. We are by Zoom only tonight. Because we're by Zoom, I'll take roll call attendance. Justin Casanova Davis.
Here.
Justin Yanosik.
Here.
Aaron Hunt.
Here.
Aaron Kenny.
Here.
Chris Baker.
Here.
And Kevin Champagne here. I think I hit everybody. First agenda item, I'll open it up to public comment. I don't see anyone from the public on the Zoom call, Justin. I don't know if there's anybody you can see that I can't.
No one from the public's here.
Okay. We'll move right into discussion items. So I'll do these a little out of order, Steve. So results of the planning board meeting for the K2 modification request. So we were kind of talking about that as everybody came in. Steve was nice enough to go to the planning board meeting in person. I attended by Zoom. Steve did a great job kind of laying out our case of why we thought the project team consultants could do basically what Beta was going to be hired to do. And fortunately, the planning board agreed. So they gave us a waiver to that K2 form. So I think that's like a $19,000.
It was, yeah,
savings.
just shy of 19. And they're issuing a modification. It's not a waiver. I just want to make sure we're not using the wrong terminology, but they're going to, Rich McCarthy's going to issue a modification to the special permit condition 24, which will allow for the architect, engineer, and testing agencies' reports to be submitted in lieu of having the planning board consultant, which is Beta Group, come out and do the same thing. And then ultimately the final affidavits, again, by the various engineers and the architect. And they're mainly interested in, like the civil landscape. So even though we're having affidavits for MEP, FP, and so forth, they're really more interested in the site work type things that were part of that Form K2. But the good thing was they understood that they didn't want to spend any more money than was necessary. And it was unanimous. It was, I think they pretty much, I believe, had their minds made up, with just us doing a short presentation, but it worked out well. I mean, what we're doing now is nothing more than we would have done anyways. So all of that will be part of the record.
Yep. All right. Thanks, Steve. Anybody have any questions on that? Okay. All right. The floor is yours, Steve, for the OPM report.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. Okay. OPM report for August 9th. I'll start off with progress since our last meeting, which was on the 19th of July. Castagna has completed footings, piers, and foundation walls. They've completed dam proofing and foundation insulation board. They've set anchor bolts. They've started to install the underslab HVAC, plumbing and electrical. Mainly, they've been working on the plumbing and electrical over the last couple of weeks, or a week and a half, 2 weeks. There's some HVAC lines that are going to be installed. They're not quite complete yet. They've started backfilling the foundation, both interior and exterior. They've done site drainage on the west side of the property, which is the church side. And this week they started the installation of the water services for the fire and domestic water from the street tap, which I don't know if you've gone by, but they did have a plate in the street yesterday, and they were doing the tap today. So that just started this week. I'm going to see if I can switch here to photo documentation. Are you seeing that?
Yes.
Okay. So just a short photo doc for the last month. This is one of the aerial views that Andy took on the 22nd. Essentially you've got your west side, church side here. There's the existing fire station. I think last time we looked at this, they had the probably 65-70% of the foundation walls on. They've now closed this up because this was the stumbling block for a while because of the existing transformer, which was moved in a much quicker fashion than we thought because of the cooperation we had from the utilities, and they were able to close that foundation up. And you can see on this west side, this is where they've started to bring up the interior grade and backfilling the exterior foundation. But that's the aerial views are nice to see the entire project. Yes.
So that section of foundation wall's in now, though, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Foundations are complete. So this is, going sort of chronologically back. This is July 17th. They're forming and pouring the east foundation wall, which is essentially the training room area. They're also starting the backfilling of interior walls and bringing up the slab to a point, because they only brought it up as to the lowest level of what they needed for plumbing, so that they get plumbing and electrical in, and then continue to work their way up. This is the formwork for the elevator pit walls. On the 26th, we've got damp proofing on the foundation walls. This happens to be a view from the east side. And you can see there's the elevator pit here that has the membrane on it. This was on the 26th, sort of an overview from the hill. I've been taking these, periodic as we come up. Again, a lot of the backfill is done on the exterior, and they bring in material in on the interior. This is the elevator pit wall with the bituthane waterproofing membrane. You can see conduits have been started to be installed. Again, this is beginning of August on the 2nd. We've got plumbing lines running in embedded with sand. And some more plumbing. There's some electrical in the background. Again, the elevator pit. So they've been working on those under slab utilities the last couple of weeks. Here's some of the electrical conduit. And then they started to frame up the mock-up panel, which is it's over on the west side of the property at the construction fence next to the church. So that's all I have for photos. I don't know if there's any questions on any of those, or I'll continue on.
You might touch on this, but is there any update on when the mock-up is going to be ready? Reading through the meeting minutes, it sounded like that might be a little delayed, possibly.
It's a few weeks away. They've been periodically, they poured the slab when they had concrete available. They brought the framer in. There was a couple questions on how we wanted the framing for the mock-up, not necessarily how it's going on the building, but really the mock-up is not necessarily the framing, but the components of your AVB, your air vapor barrier, your siding, and ultimately at some point your colors, but really how the wall goes together. There's a sample window that's going to be installed. And Ron, correct me if I'm wrong. Do we have a door in that also?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. So it's really to make sure that all of the various trades are installing their materials and overlapping those vapor barriers, so that we're not having any kind of vapor or water infiltration. So I'll just go back to the schedule look ahead. Right now, like I said, they've started the water services, so they'll be finishing that up, which include pressure test and chlorination. They'll continue site drainage. They'll continue and finish up the underslab HVAC, plumbing, and electric. Continue to backfill and prep for slab subgrade. They were talking about a possible slab pour. I'm not sure whether that's going to happen or not. It's really based on how much time they have in between getting the underground done and when the steel comes in. And starting of erection of steel is going to be on August 21st. It's about 2 weeks to erect. It'll bring us to the beginning of September, weather permitting, and then they'll continue on for another 4 weeks or so doing detailing and moment connections and so forth. We did have a steel pre-installation meeting today, confirmed that that's the start date. They're going to be getting their ironworker certifications in. We talked about logistics, parking, where the crane's going to set up, what's the sequence. Had the engineer, Ron, myself, the erector, the steel supplier, the general contractor, all on the call. Seems like it's going to be pretty straightforward. They actually applied for their hot work permit today while they were on site also. So that the next major thing is the erection of the structural steel. So other issues for the project, Castagna right now with their application for payment number 5, which we're reviewing and getting ready to process. They're about 12.73% plus or minus complete through July 31st. I had on my list here the results of the planning department, which we've already gone through, so that worked out well. Ron, sorry about that. Ron, I did put on the list here maybe we can have the discussion now of the thermally broken aluminum storefront doors.
Mm-hmm.
Ron went over this somewhat prior in regard to Conair, unfortunately being the only one to provide this, which was not the information that Dawn already had the time of bidding. We do have now a PCO that's submitted for what that delta will be to go from the what they had submitted was the YKK to the Conair. And Ron, if you want to add a little bit to that.
Yeah, so I think you covered it, but the bottom line is that we reviewed it, we looked at it. They are going through a third party. So, with everything else in the world, things have changed. So Conair only sells their product to people who buy from them regularly, which kind of makes sense, right? They want to make sure that these things get installed properly. They don't get. So part of that 46,000 is the markup going through a third party supplier. And the contractor has in fact confirmed that Conair is sending it to, I forget their name, Steve.
They're out of Bridgewater.
Yep. This third party supplier who then will sell this to the installer. So part of that is that cost. The other part is they have to obviously redo the submittals. And then the last part of that, if we recall, it is all of the frames change, right? We're going from one company to another. And that's just obviously they're a little bit more. If they wouldn't have been, then they would have been the low bidder at the time of the low bid. So I will say, though, that once this is approved, we have told Castagna, so they fully understand that the team here at Doran Whittier, we're going to go through and any door on the upper levels that we can make hollow metal, painted hollow metal is what we're going to do. So we're going to get the 46,000 and then we're going to go back and ask them for some credits. Because I think, Steve, you would agree, and the contractor has agreed that hollow metal frames and wood doors are less expensive than the aluminum storefront and aluminum doors.
Yes.
And the other issue with that is that, we have black frames. So black frames and doors down on the exterior of the building. And we have a different color scheme on the second floor. And we don't want to start talking to them about supplying the aluminum frames and doors in 2 different colors. So that's everything there is to know about that.
So is there some sort of breakdown to that PCO that shows, what is, I guess where I'm going with this is we talked previously that, you know, if we had just gone with Con Air originally and said they're the sole source of the doors on this project, and trying to get an idea of what other costs are built into this. You know, you mentioned like the frames. We had to get different frames. Were those frames already purchased and now there's some sort of cost to kind of restocking them? Or are there any other costs that are built in that aren't strictly just going to Con Air?
It's about 16,000, I believe, right? So
I have the breakdown up on the screen.
right. So what you're looking at is we wouldn't have had to pay the 6,000 for the third party. They're calling it coordination, but it's a third party supplier. So we wouldn't have paid the 6,000. We wouldn't have paid the 5,500. So that's 11,500. We would have paid for the shop drawings. We would have paid the 22,872, which is the difference between the two products. We would not have paid the overhead and profit of the bond. There would have been a little bit of overhead and profit in the bond, right, Steve? Because
we would have paid something for the bond.
Right.
I don't think that it would have been 10% overhead and profit because it would have been at bid time.
Exactly. So that's why I say, if you take the 11 plus the 3, it's about 14. You add up all the change, it's about 16,000.
So about a third of the cost, essentially.
Yep.
How much of that 16,000 do you expect to make back with the changes on the second floor doors?
I don't know, because we're going to get credits for this and then we'll get an ad for the steel frames and doors. I will say this though, that this is like, it's hard to tell only because sometimes, and I'll say sometimes because sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. When you do a product proprietary, no matter who the company is, and I don't want to badmouth Con Air, if we would have done YKK or EFCO or Con Air or Old Castle or US Aluminum, if we would have done any of them proprietary, they know that you have to buy their product. So they're going to charge you whatever they want to charge you. We've had different delivery methods, construction management projects where we've specified something proprietary. The numbers came back out of whack for what everybody thought the numbers should be. And the CM basically told the company, okay, we're going to open this up and we're going to get competitive pricing. And they've dropped their price tens of thousands of dollars. And I'm talking specifically about a building automation system. So you're paying a $16,000 ad that you wouldn't have had to pay. That $16,000 could easily have been included in their bid just because they were proprietary.
I guess where I'm struggling with this is we're not the only building around that's trying to be as energy efficient as possible. And there are other buildings that are even more energy efficient than us. So how is this one selective sole provider of these type of doors? Why does that really matter in the long run to our building? What are these other buildings doing that is different than what we're doing?
The other buildings don't have the requirement of 140 mile an hour testing for large missile tests in a Category 4 building. So,
and that goes back to that original where they should have just set the volume or the speed of the wind to like 138, and this wouldn't have been that big of an issue.
If the state would have set it to 138, we'd be using YKK. Everybody'd be happy, and there'd be no issue.
Okay, good enough.
But I think to Justin's point, there's a new energy code out there right now, Justin, and I'm telling you, your project is a good project to have gotten in under the wire on that, because we've got the green engineer who is a technical advisor for Mass Saves, Thornton Tomasetti. There are a lot of energy engineers looking at the new energy code saying, we don't know how to comply with this with conventional construction as it stands today.
I mean, I'm not opposed to this. I just think that, a sole provider who's selective about who they provide to, that doesn't make me feel good about that. Like, what if one of these things gets damaged somehow? What's the process going to be like to replace that? And when we're unable to replace it, then what do we have to do to have a functioning door in that place?
Mm-hmm. Right. So and I can tell you that, well, I mean, first of all, we all know that the 140 mile an hour thing is a code requirement. So if this gets damaged in the future, maybe they relax the code. Our structural engineer happens to sit on that board of overseers for that code. And he was the one that told us, the 140 is a little aggressive.
Yeah.
And some of the members of the board didn't agree with it, but it is what it is for now. So hopefully the next rollout of the code, it may change. So if it does get damaged, you may not run into this problem again. But again, you don't, like, if it gets damaged and you call Con Air and say, we want you to swap this out, and you call some other companies, they won't be hyper focused on it right now the way they are, right? Because right now they know that they're the only game in town that has the energy efficient products that meet these requirements. And who's to say that YKK or US Aluminum or Oldcastle, they don't get these large missile tests in place. So it's, it's,
Yeah. So that's kind of the big thing here, that these other companies make thermally broken doors. It's just they don't have the missile test data
correct
for those doors.
Correct. And the weird thing is that even Oldcastle, when I had an opportunity to talk to the factory, like I told you, they do a lot of work in the Midwestern states that have cold weather. It's just not the extreme cold that we get on those degree days. I mean, they're tornadoes and everything else. So they don't have codes in that area that say you need this large missile test. Now in Dade County, Florida, they do. And that's why Massachusetts will accept either the prescriptive code testing, or they will accept the testing, which is what these guys have for the Dade County, Florida testing. So.
Any other questions on that piece of it?
So I guess we'd be somewhat looking for your consensus that we move forward with this. It's a $46,000.
I mean, I know we keep talking about this, and it's not optional.
Yeah, I think we have to do it. It's large enough that I forget.
This isn't a wish list item. It's not an option. This is a code requirement. So, yeah. I mean, I don't know what discussion there is to have, right? Do it.
Yeah, I agree, Aaron. I don't know if anybody else feels differently, but I think we have to do it. And I believe it's probably I forget the amounts that we set, but it's probably something that Justin and I both have to sign off on, correct?
I believe when it
formally gets submitted.
I think we were 50,000 for site and 25 for building. So
for anything else,
Yeah. Yep.
So, yeah, unless anybody disagrees, I'm going to say move forward with it and prepare it.
Okay.
I mean, we clearly don't have another option.
Right.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, right. Or we would have been pursuing it. Okay. Enough said on that.
Well, I guess the one last thing on it is, so Ron, I know you mentioned that you were going to get back to the contractor on what doors would be swapped out and what that savings might be. I mean, when do you think that'll all be developed by?
We'll have that by the next meeting, I hope.
Okay.
Like, in other words, by the next meeting, we will definitely be able to show you which doors we're talking about.
But you might not have the pricing from the contractor.
Right. We may not have the pricing, or we may, but we'll definitely be able to say, look, these are the ones that we've identified as, not needing to be, and technically really not wanting to be aluminum, just because they're going to come in the same color unless we start doing different colors.
Yeah. Okay. All right, I think you can proceed, Steve.
The next item, we've had some initial discussions there in regard to adding a better access to the low training roof, which is in the back of the building. We've got two low roofs in the rear of the building. One is accessible by a door. The other just has windows, and there is a 4-foot parapet wall there. It's set up for training. It's set up for the fire department to put ladders on. It's got some diamond plate on the parapet coping, so that they can do some ladder training in the back of the building. However, the roof also has two roof drains on it that need to be accessed by maintenance. And we started looking at it, roof access for a guy coming up to do some maintenance where he gets to the top of the parapet wall and he's got to essentially jump down 4 feet. There's some safety issues with that. So long story short, we sort of come up with a couple of essentially two options. One is to have a aluminum roof ladder mounted to the exterior of the wall from the high roof. The high roof does have a hatch access from the second floor, but they could go and climb the ladder down to that lower level, or build a pressure treated movable wood platform that could be placed where the ladder is put up against the parapet, so that the guy could come up the ladder, get on that platform, have a few stairs down to the roof, and that's something that could be moved out of the way when the fire department wants to do their training. We haven't priced anything yet at this point. We just wanted to initially go over it with the committee, again, just to get some feel for what you may or may not prefer. And I can actually, I did throw up.
Yeah, if you have a plan. Yeah.
Here's a building section elevation. So there's your ground level. You got your 4-foot parapet wall here. There's your low training roof. If we put a ladder on the wall, that ladder would be on this wall here, obviously in a place that didn't have windows, and would come up high, and they climb up, and there's a hatch somewhere around this area. The other way of doing it is that there's some, we design and build some kind of platform that is movable, where a guy still comes up on a ladder. Of course, your ladder is going to be 3 foot above that parapet wall. He climbs over onto the platform and down. And then, I mean, we've been using roof drains as the maintenance thing, but obviously you have the roofing, you have your flashings, you have other things that may need to be looked at, but we know roof drains should be looked at once or maybe twice a year so that they're not getting plugged up.
See, why would we be taking this cost on? Why wouldn't we just make it a capital program cost going forward?
Well, so Aaron, one of the discussions that we had was the chief fully intends. So this roof has pavers on it because of the training. And the intention was to build a wood mock-up with a sloped roof for training, right? You come up the ladder and then you have this wood structure up there that you can cut holes in, and it's sacrificial. And so the steps that we're talking about would be the same thing. When that mock-up, and Chief, what were we calling it? We were calling it a...
It was a roof prop. It was like
a roof prop, right.
Roof prop, yeah.
Yep. So when the training prop gets built out of pressure treated and everything else, you would build a platform with 3 or 4 steps coming down. And that's how that would get done. And I suspect, Steve, we may have money left over in the FF&E to pay for some of that stuff, right? It's just training props.
Yeah, I'm sure we do.
I stick to my question. I mean, if we have money left over at the end, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, the reason we're talking about now, if we go with a roof ladder, that means it's mounted to the building. We would have to set up whatever kind of blocking we would need for it. If we're building a platform on the roof itself, then yeah, we can wait.
Yeah, I mean, if you're already building other wood structures to put up there, then I don't know. I guess to go up there once a year, it seems like maybe the wood platform is more cost effective than having a ladder that you may never use down from the high roof.
Or carry blocking in the wall for a future ladder.
True. Yep.
So, and the reason there's no ladder is when Matt was with us during design, at that point in the design, the concern was that those ladders always end up getting snow and ice and everything else on them. And so, his thinking was he'd rather use a ladder than have something built in that could have that kind of issue.
I think Aaron's idea is a good one. Could we put some blocking and then have an as-built that shows where it is, that if we ever want to put a ladder in later as part of a maintenance program, we know where it is?
Yeah, I think we could do that.
Just have the cold form guy put some blocking in.
Yeah, that's easy.
I mean, it might have to be a little oversized because we're not necessarily going to know what the supports would be for a future ladder, but we could certainly accommodate something, and then like that, have it located so that because there may be a change in how this is looked at once we're gone.
Sure. I mean, maybe find some sort of sample ladder and use that to lay out the blocking at least. There's some sort of basis.
There'll be plenty of blocking around the project. Move some of it up. Be conservative.
Yeah, it's easy. It's very, very easily done. I think to your point, Aaron, it's these ladders are typically not even, they're maybe 24 inches wide. They're a kit, right? Especially the aluminum ones that Steve was speaking about. They're lightweight. They have like 4 or 6, depending on the height of the ladder, attachment points. So if we just put in blocking at those 3 locations, we should be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're not, a lot of the projects we've done recently, they're not even, used to be Miss Metals would fabricate these ladders. Now they're just, it's a
pre-engineered thing.
Yeah. It's an all-in ladder type of purchase thing where it's just, you give them the height and it comes and it's got the serrated steps. And so, okay, we'll plan to put the blocking in the wall and not pursue the ladder now.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
So before you move to the next thing, which is the schedule, there are 2 other things that we're asking the contractor to do. One is we had floor boxes in the training room. We had shared with the chief during design these mobile charging stations that we use in schools, public libraries, and so forth. And they can charge 3 or 4 devices at a time. And they come in a set of 5. So that means you get 15 to 20 people all plugged into these wireless devices. And it negates the need for floor boxes. So floor boxes are expensive. And, like Matt talked about, again, during design, they're a maintenance issue, right? You get a floor box, you get water, cleaning the carpet and so forth, or whatever flooring we have in there. However, there is a code that says a quote unquote meeting room needs to have floor boxes. And the intent of the code, if you read the commentary in the code, says that it's to avoid loose wires on the floors and egress paths. So we've reached out to Peter, the building inspector, and we've said we intentionally call this a training room so that it doesn't say meeting room on the plans. And we want to get rid of the floor boxes because we needed more time, to make the decision on this. And the chief is with us when it comes to getting rid of these things because they're more flexible, number one, and you don't have wires that come down the furniture and plug into the floor. So we reached out to Peter, the electrical inspector, and essentially said, here's the deal. We want to do this. It saves money. And we think it works better. It's a better solution. It's newer technology. And we just need your blessing that this training room is not considered like a meeting room. And, there is always the concern that if it looks like a meeting room, smells like a meeting room, and tastes like a meeting room, then it's a meeting room. But my opinion on that, and my personal opinion, any room over 300 square feet meets that requirement, right? You could walk into any school and say, this isn't a classroom, it's a meeting room. You could have a meeting in here. So Peter did come back, and he simply asked how many people are in the room and what the square footage is of the room, and he's going to get back to us. And then, we would just write a letter saying that we're using this in lieu of floor boxes as a way to keep any loose wires from being in the path of egress within the room. So that's a change right now that as soon as Peter is okay with it, we've sent a proposal request to the contractor. So we're getting pricing on what the credit would be not to install that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any thoughts or comments on that or anything.
I don't. I mean, I'll leave it to the chief and maintenance, whatever they prefer.
Okay. What was the other thing, Steve?
So I was going to ask you.
I was going to say, I thought you said there were two.
Yeah, I lost my train of thought here.
We had been talking about card readers, but I think we resolved that.
Yeah, card reader's all set. We have what we need. Okay, we'll figure it out. Sorry.
That's all right. So as far as schedule, we did receive an updated schedule from Castagna that ran them through July 31st. Essentially, they're actually a couple of days better than their May schedule. They've got move into the new building shown as going from 7/2 to 7/15/24. Where in May they had it 7/3 to 7/16, and project closeout, which is the very end of the project, both phases and closeout documents, November 5th versus November 13th. So they are showing that they're still on schedule. The one thing I did want to note, and they did account for it in their latest schedule update, is that we got just recently through the electrical contractor a delay from the generator manufacturer of a delivery of the generator to September 24th of 24, which is not within the schedule at all. We've discussed it with Castagna. They're reviewing back to Brightlight, who is the electrical contractor, and Craft Power, who is the generator company. And we basically said, okay, we issued a set of contract documents. They had a schedule in it. Everybody knew what the schedule was. Contracts were signed. Submittals came in. Submittals were approved. Why do we have a delay at this point when originally you were right on schedule? What's the issue? Plant shutdowns from the pandemic. That's been done for a long time. So at this point, and we had our job meeting today, we asked for an update. They have not received anything from Craft Power yet. But unfortunately, I had another job that Craft Power was on, and the same thing occurred. Now, what was done on that particular project to keep the building being able to be opened and used is they did bring in a temporary generator for their life safety. And when the generator came in, they swapped it out, and there was no interruption to the building at all. So we have discussed that as being an option. But before we even go down that road, we want to know, well, why? What's the reason? Craft Power, tell us why all of a sudden you're 3 months later than what you had given us and agreed to before. So that's just something I want to bring up. It's we're making sure that we review it and we get a decent answer. But at this point, it still does not seem to have affected our overall schedule.
And I just want to add that the reason we're asking for the reason is not to say, okay, maybe there's a cost here. It's basically to say, then we're not going to use Generac and Kraft, Kraft supplying a Generac generator. We're going to go to a Kohler generator because we do have time. If you look at their original procurement delivery lead time that they gave us, we still have time to take the approved submittal, send it to a different company and say, give us a generator. And Castagna and Brightlight, they bid the job. So they owe you a generator. And we gave them that option. We said, look, if you need us to, well, they've already got the approved submittal. So if you need us to approve a submittal that looks exactly like this from another company, we have no problem doing that. And so Castagna took that back to Brightlight and basically said, you're either putting in a temp generator or you're changing companies or you're getting Generac and the supplier Kraft back off of their delay letter. I think, Steve, also that Castagna said that Generac was a generator that they were told was going to be delayed and then it showed up 4 months before the delay date.
Yeah, they did say that, and that's great, but we can't bank on it, unfortunately, because
sure.
Just showing up on a truck is great, but then no one's ready for it.
Right. Exactly.
How long have we been waiting for a response from Kraft?
We went over that. I think it was last week or the week before. It's new information.
Okay. This hasn't been like a month that we're waiting for them. They haven't even responded, because at that point I'd say, who knows if these guys are just going to delay it even further 2 months from now.
Yeah, it was the 7/26 job meeting, so it's been a couple of weeks now.
Okay.
But it's on our meeting minutes, so it's not going to be forgotten. We're just, like I said, we touched base with them today on it, and they said that they're following up through the chain of command. They're following up through Brightlight, and Brightlight is apparently touching base or reaching out to Kraft on a daily basis to get an answer.
Is this related to some sort of financial stability issue at Kraft, or is it just a equipment availability and lead time thing?
Well, we want them to tell us that, and we don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah. I think I'd be, or maybe it's just maybe it's the way they operate, and that means that when on the next job, when something gets submitted, that Kraft is a supplier, it gets rejected. But it doesn't help us now, unless we go to an alternate supplier because we get a poor answer from Kraft and no relief.
Well, I mean, we don't even know nobody's reached out to an alternate supplier yet to even know if they can improve on that date.
Right. That would be Castagna's.
Yeah.
That's Castagna asked us, or I don't know if, can't recall exactly how the conversation went, but the conversation was, hey, you do have the option of not using Generac, right? You just void their contract and say you can't meet the date. You told us you could, now you can't, and go buy it from somebody else. And we told them that as far as the town and we are concerned, as long as it performs and it has the same quality as the one, because we had 3 products specified anyway, go get another company to do it. So that's how it was left with.
Yeah. So as soon as we hear more, you'll hear more.
So I remember what my second thing was.
Yep, go ahead.
Peter, the wiring inspector, electrical inspector of town, came down to the site and was reviewing the underground work and suggested to the electrical contractor that they encase all of the underground electrical in concrete. So, which is a code requirement if you have an emergency operations center or a critical operations center in the building, or a dispatch, which is considered critical operations. And we have neither. And so during the design process, this was a topic of discussion that we had, I believe, with everybody. because it was done at an all department meeting, I believe, and we have notes. And so the question is, and I just want to let you know that so our electrical engineer sent us all their documentation, and we're going to send that off. Peter is correct. It's a quote unquote good thing to do. It's not a required thing to do. And that would obviously cost some monies because he was inspecting the installed conduit. So right now, the way we've left it is, the contractor sent us a request for information asking if in fact we have to meet this requirement. And I always hesitate saying just blanket no to an inspector without letting the owner know what's going on. So that's what's going on. Is that, we intentionally didn't spend that kind of money on the project because you have the EOC and the critical ops center over at the police station, as well as the mech dispatch is at that location.
Yeah, I mean,
there's ramifications to this too. Once you comply with that section of the electrical code, it's not just encasing the concrete or encasing the conduits in concrete below the slab. It has to do with all sorts of fire ratings throughout the building, the type of wire you can use, the gauge of the wire. There's a lot more to it once you start rolling that dice. And that's why the intentional decision during design was we do not have a critical operations center here. It's a fire station.
So I mean, I've seen other duct banks get encased in concrete that aren't part of, emergency dispatches. That I'm assuming that's because some shallow depth below a roadway or something that we're meeting all cover requirements. So there's no code mandate that we concrete encase these things.
Correct. Everything outside the building is encased in concrete.
Well, this is inside the building.
This is inside the building.
Oh.
Below the finished floor slab.
Yeah, you're going to have a slab on grade.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, but if it was a critical ops building, then you would do that. So, anyway, I just want to let you all know that we will be responding to it. I just didn't want to respond without letting you know, because it is a request from the town building inspector. Or the town electrical inspector, rather. Sorry.
Yeah, I think we have to press him on that, personally. I don't know if anybody feels differently, but if it's not a code requirement.
I definitely agree. I don't think we need to bear additional expense or, potentially delay any piece of the project for something that's not code required. And, again, all of this stuff has been looked at by engineers too, and, stamped as okay and what is needed. So I don't see a reason to do that.
Yep. Agreed.
I mean, if we stopped every step of the way and did what someone's opinion was of a good idea, we would never finish the product.
It's a good point, Justin.
That's a phenomenal point.
Okay.
Let us know what he says, Ron.
Will do.
Ron, I'm sorry, I may have missed it in your explanation there. He pitched this as, this is a good idea, you guys should do it, or I'm requiring you guys to do this?
So we don't know the actual conversation that took place with the contractor. We received an RFI that said the building inspector is asking about this compliance with this particular code.
Okay.
And then the RFI goes on to say, we as the contractor, we don't see any mention of this code requirement or this design in the bid set. So, and then when I had a verbal conversation with the contractor, they said that their impression of what was actually said was, you should think about doing this. It's a good idea.
Thanks.
And so I said, all right, well, I'm just going to reach out to the electrical inspector and let him know, or just remind everybody that, it's not a critical ops or an EOC.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but I don't believe he can require anything that isn't
required by code. They can require things above.
They can.
Yeah. There are sentences in the code that basically say the inspectors can do whatever they want.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Let's throw more money at it.
But anyway, it sounds like he's actually looking for clarification. So let's provide the
Yeah, he's looking for
clarification and hope
right.
that he understands we looked at it and made a conscious decision not to do it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, speaking of changes, just sort of an update on what we received. We received 7 PCOs from Castagna to date. Few of them are new from last time. They were sort of hovering at 4 for a while. So, this, I don't have a spreadsheet at this point because I can put it all on one slide like this, but the steel we had approved. We did get another revision on the revision to the domestic water service, which is a credit of $10,251. That just came in this week, so I want to review it. PCO4 for the deletion of the irrigation controller and conduit stubs. We had approved that, and that was a credit of $1265.56. Then we got 3 more new ones. PCO5, which was for PR number 4, which was second level wall rating revision to make it a 1-hour wall. That was $2,124.51, which we're reviewing. PCO6 was for PR5, which was install an area drain in place of a catch basin and reroute the piping. That's a catch basin that's located behind the current living quarters. That came in at $13,576.94. Again, under review. And then PCO7, which we just talked about, and it's for the thermally broken door manufacturer at $46,025.60, which is no longer under review. That will move forward.
So that's an existing catch basin for PCO6?
There's an existing catch basin that's beyond the work limits that piping is tied into, that we're having to, we can't eliminate it because it is a low point. So this just came in. It's a little higher than I thought it would be. There may be another way of doing it, but one of the issues too was, we had to make sure we had certain inverts because we're tying back into a newly installed drain manhole to tie into the entire system. Even though this is existing and it's already there, it's already part of the drainage.
So we haven't sent that. We haven't got a response from our engineers yet for them to take a look at this. This was, again, it's an existing catch basin that apparently is not piped to anywhere. So it's in an area, quite frankly, that I think it might have been abandoned when the septic system went in. But we're going to have our engineers take a look at this and just kind of take a look at their breakdown and how it compares to what we're asking them to do. There's already a drain manhole there that we're connecting to. In my mind, this is literally connecting an existing catch basin to a new drain manhole that we already have in the project.
I mean, if it's for a low point, couldn't we just include that in the landscaping to slope it towards the drain that we're already installing? Would that be less money in the long run?
We did look at that, Steve. We talked about channeling it.
My understanding is that didn't work. They ended up having to pipe it to make sure it got to, because of the distance to the new drain manhole that's going in. Any kind of if you're talking about a swale or something, that was not going to work. But again, these 3 came in on Monday, so we're going to go through them.
Okay.
Except for 7.
Not number 7, right?
Yep. And then proposal requests that have been issued that we haven't got submissions on. I see a couple things that this should have been erased, but PR6 was to delete corner guards at CMU at the interior walls. PR7 was some metering changes. And then PR8 is to delete the electrical floor boxes that Ron discussed earlier. So we do have a few other proposal requests out there that we just haven't gotten the pricing in yet. And that's the end of my report. The last page is what we looked at for the ladder. So I'll stop sharing.
Any questions on the OPM report from anyone? Doesn't look like it. Any other discussion items? That was the extent of our discussion items for tonight. All right.
I had nothing else.
Jumping in. So then our only action item is approval of meeting minutes from July 19th.
Yep, I've reviewed those minutes, don't have any edits or comments, so I'd like to ask for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All right, do a roll call for the vote. Justin Casanova Davis,
Yes.
Aaron Hunt,
Yes.
Chief Kinney,
Yes.
Justin Yanosik,
Yes.
and Kevin Champagne.
Yes.
All right.
right.
Yep, passes.
Yep. Unanimous. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks.
All right. Any other items to be discussed tonight?
Yeah, I've last closing thought here, Kevin. Given Steele starting the end of the month, maybe we should plan a committee field trip.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Might take us a little while to get a date on the calendar, but something to think about.
Just to go down and take a look once all the steel's in at the start of September.
Yeah, or the middle.
Yeah.
I don't know. Steel goes up quick, so.
Yeah.
Unless you want to do it before your next committee meeting.
Yeah.
If that's going to be at the town hall, not a Zoom.
That's not a bad idea, Steve.
That's
Like
good.
that.
So that's the 13th. So all the steel will be in. And maybe the mock-up. I don't know what the status of the mock-up is, if you think it's ready then too, but
I think the steel will be interesting to see. I mean, again,
Yeah.
you're going to really see the building now as we're going vertical versus it's all been horizontal or underground.
okay. Yeah, we can talk maybe we start at 6:30 or something instead of 6. We all gotta take a half hour to walk around.
Yeah, we can meet down there and then go up to the town hall. We can, obviously we'll talk to Castagna, but it'll be not during their work hours.
Yep.
Presumably. So
It's a good idea, Aaron. Thanks.
Just as long as we don't meet in the training room, we're good.
The floor boxes aren't there yet. So we're good. All right. Anyone else? All right. Then I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right. Roll call vote. Justin Casanova Davis,
Yes.
Chris Baker,
Yes.
Aaron Hunt,
Aye.
Justin Yanosik,
Yes.
Chief Kinney,
Yes.
and Kevin Champagne, yes. All right. Thanks, everyone. So we'll meet in person. Next meeting is September 12th. And we'll
Abatement of the water bill, looking at executing a lease agreement with NextGrid, as well as adopting sewer regulations.